Hey, welcome back to the Valiant Unicorn YouTube channel, where we promote self-love and creativity, and sometimes we get into the culty stuff, because I was from a polygamous cult. And today we're interviewing my mother, Shirley. She's going to tell us some of her experiences growing up in that environment. And a lot of people was asking how first of all, how your family, the Hansons, got involved in the polygamous group, and then how that affected you growing up.
Okay, the way that my grandparents got involved was, it was during the Depression. Dad was, they had met people in the Davis County Co-op at the time. That's what they were called. And at that time, they were just basically saying, we're just trying to make a cooperation, because what the government was doing because of the Depression to try to help people get out of the Depression, they were saying, if you can get a co-op or a cooperation going and a settle, then the government was going to give you a certain amount of money to get it started. It was Charles Kingston's son Eldon that started it, but when Charles Kingston got involved and came down from Idaho, that's when they started pushing and promoting polygamy, and it was still not considered a church. It was just supposed to be the Davis County Co-op. Legally, they didn't put in for a church until like the 1980s, because then if they become a church, then they can become tax exempt.
Yeah, at first it was just, from my understanding, it was a lot of people just trying to survive during the Great Depression.
Getting together, working together, bringing things together to share with people. They lived in, some people call them tents, but it was like they had the plywood base on it, and they would have the burlap tops for the tents, but they also had little coal stoves in them. Most of the time, they would eat meals together as a community. The guys would go out, they'd find jobs. There was times they would be out thinning beets for, I had an uncle that would say, one more round for the kingdom.
That was implying like they would do around like one row of the beets for free for the no, it wasn't for free?
Actually, it wasn't that, but that later when they got the co-op mine, then they used that as one more round for the kingdom, because
to manipulate people like us.
The people, to say, okay, now you, if you're truly consecrated, then you're going to work an extra hour off the clock. I kind of got used to doing extra with off the clock, and that was just the norm.
And encouraged.
Yeah, and it was encouraged.
Yeah, even with the child labor laws, I think they use that to manipulate their people, because first of all, as a child, I didn't even know about the child labor laws. And then when I start hearing about it, they're telling me, oh, we can't pay you that much because you can't get credit for those hours because of child labor laws. You could still work them, you just don't get paid for them.
Well, not only that, but when one of the twins was working at the clothing store, I ended up getting copies of her time cards. Mm-hmm. And when I compared it to the checks, they said, oh, well, because she's not 16 yet, we don't have to pay minimum wage. We can pay this amount. And so then what they would do, they actually reduced her hours. They didn't pay her properly. And I have no idea, somebody somewhere has taken off with my binder. No, I had a binder. It was like a 5-inch binder that had a lot of stuff in, but when I was kicked out in 2015, I don't know what happened to it.
Was the co-op in Bountiful?
The co-op was in Bountiful.
Okay.
It was in Bountiful.
Yeah, I remember stories, they call them the blue jackets.
In order for us to all be equal, everybody had to wear the same thing, and they ended up getting a
bunch of denim.
Like bolts of denim. And they made the overalls for the men, and they made dresses for the girls. And they were all alike. They were so there was no reason for anybody to say, well, so-and-so got this or so-and-so got this, because they had to all be equal.
On Amanda's channel, they talk about how Eldon was a lot different, and when Ortel got in charge, then things started getting weird, where people would marry siblings.
Oh yeah. When Ortel took over, it was a totally new. Because I remember my father Gerald telling me that Eldon said, The women should not have children any closer than 2 years apart. It takes 9 months to create a baby. It takes another 9 months to get the baby taken care of and raised up to the point where you can also build your body up. So you shouldn't even consider trying to get pregnant before your baby is 9 months old.
Well, that kind of surprises me because especially now with how things are.
Because then
they have like these Irish twins where they have them within the same calendar year.
That was LaDonna. That was when the Petersons got involved. And the stories that I've heard from people was that anytime LaDonna got upset, she would go cry to Esco, and Esco had beat Ortel several times to the point there was days that
cool. I'm glad someone beat him. Just kidding.
Hey, why do you think that Daniel and Jesse, it came from LaDonna? She's the one that taught those kids how to beat their kids to submission.
Wow, that's interesting. So sorry, Amanda, if we're gonna slander your grandpa.
that was my understanding. That's the stories I was told. Ortel, LaDonna did pretty much run everything, and
she definitely did. It was
even
almost
before Ortel passed away.
Yeah, somehow she got life insurance when nobody
else was allowed
insurance. To even today. You don't get an inheritance. You don't get... The order gets everything. Let's get more to your story, because your parents, although they wasn't born into it, they were brought into very young, and you was born into the group.
Yes, I was born into the group.
And how did that... What was your childhood like, and what eventually would bring you to come to the idea that you wanted to be a seventh wife of Daniel's?
Oh my Lanta. Seriously, dude? Okay, so we grew up and we were basically told, okay, the order is the only place on earth where everybody can live all of God's laws. And we were told that the people on the outside, people that are not a part of the co-op, people that are outsiders, they don't know this. And so it's very important that you don't share anything. You can't say anything because it's secret. And they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't know.
So was that like a manipulative thing to where you're better than them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, so it was just like, just understand that you are chosen. The thing about being in the co-op, then the Hansons were considered, and I remember the neighbor, Bill Stoddard, calling us, they're like dogs. And if you got called a pot licker, then you were being called a dog because dogs clean up the leftovers out of the pots. You put the pots and pans on let the animals clean them up. So,
and was that how the Hansons were viewed? And
that was how the Hansons were viewed. And I mean, that's what we got called, pot lickers a lot. And if you got called pot licker, then that was very derogatory. That was like somebody calling you a bitch. Or a
bitch.
or a donkey's rear end, a jackass.
Yeah.
Pardon my language, dude.
It's fine. Obviously, I swear.
Later, I didn't realize this until I was in Salt Lake. They says that the families that are more rebellious, that are not controllable, they're called the rejects. They were sent to the mine to keep them, so they couldn't see what was going on in the valley, so they couldn't understand the inner workings of what was really going on in the order.
Did Grandpa Gerald's family talk about the law of one above another?
I don't remember being taught the law of one above another.
At all?
Not in the home. No, I was not taught that.
Really? Did that come later with Daniel?
That came later after I moved into Salt Lake and was part of the inner circle, so to call. But then I was still an outcast because I was a Hanson. They didn't like the Fransons. They didn't like the Hansons. They didn't like the Dyes.
So that's kind of why all your brothers left the order, right? Or what happened with that?
They got cheated. They got cheated out of their wages. I mean, the mine, there was a time that one of my brothers, Stephen, he had been working in the mine and he didn't never get paid. So my mom had to go up to the neighbors, to the Stoddards, and say, hey, you got the bookwork, where is it? Where is it? Oh, well, we never got a time card. We never got a time card. And then later, her husband, Bill, he comes out, the one that we used to call us pot lickers, and he would say, give her the time card. So she opens the drawer, she takes out the bottom layer. You know how some people line their shelves with stuff? She had that line, and then she pulled out the time card, and he had 2 or 3 time cards
That she was holding.
that she was holding. And she goes, well, I wouldn't do anything the artist or Ortel didn't tell me to do.
So there was definitely favoritism within the group. And you've seen that growing up, no?
Oh yeah, we've seen that all the time. We knew. We knew.
So did that influence you to lean towards Daniel as maybe a marriage option?
No, okay, so marriage.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
Girl's choice. However, you have to sit back and wait for the men to
Present
themselves
as a choice.
as a choice.
Right.
And after I started having children, and this is important, then we had classes that was called Growing Kids God's Way. And they says, in order for your children to choose the things you want them to choose, you start when they're young. So when they're like 3, 4 years old and they're bawling because they want to wear the monster truck with the shirt, and you're like, no, you can choose between the plain blue shirt, a plain red shirt, or a plain green shirt. These are your choices. Well, I want the monster truck. Slap, slap, you know.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you,
So
nope, they would take, they says, nope, you take that shirt, you cut it up, you throw it away and say, okay, these are the only shirts you have. You have a blue one, you have a red one, you have a green one. Which one do you want to wear? And so then any of those 3 choices is okay.
But any other choice is a slap.
Yes. Yes.
And so they encouraged
And this was, mind you, this is after you were born. This is after I already started, they had me taking these classes.
These classes would basically tell you to abuse your child if they're not in line with what.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it was just like, and they said, so if you're going to grow kids God's way, and you tell them it's their choice, but you limit their choices. And they would say, it's like a funnel. When they're little like this, it's narrow. But when they get bigger, then they have more options.
Okay, I mean, to some extent that makes sense. But you don't, I don't know that the abuse that they took it to seemed a bit far. But
I'm going to agree. My dad didn't abuse me. My mom was more abusive than my dad, but it was because of the resentment and the anger that was built up in her when my dad took a second wife. My mom was pregnant with me.
Right.
And it was kind of like, wasn't really something they wanted to do, but they all felt like obligated to do it. I was told by my aunt that I was already marked because, one, Mom was pregnant with me when Dad took a second wife for
that lifestyle.
For that lifestyle.
Okay. So
it's not, I mean, when I had people present themselves, every single one of them was already married. Did I have a single option? No, I only had plural options.
So when they say women's choice, but your only choices are married men. Okay, so what made you... So how did Daniel get in your head and trick you to think that he was your number one choice?
Okay, because then they had order dances.
Okay.
And we would go up there, and he made sure that he would come and ask me to dance every time I was there. And they were told, you're not allowed to dance more than 2 times with a girl, with the same girl. And so then he would make sure he would ask me to dance twice during the day. And this went on... for a couple of years. He even got to the point where he started calling Mom's house to talk to me and say, did you know there's a dance this weekend? Are you going to be coming up to the dance?
Oh, that's interesting. In my generation, we wasn't allowed to call the girls.
No, I know. But that's Daniel, and he was Ortel's son, and blah, blah, blah. And it kind of was like, okay, I hadn't had anybody give me attention like that. And so I was like, oh, what? This is kind of nice. And so that's how it got all started. That's how it was.
And in the back in the day, Daniel was tall, dark, handsome, right? Well, not tall.
Yeah, he was taller than me.
Well, not tall.
Taller than 5'6".
Right.
But so yes, he had the dark hair. He was not a bad looking guy, and you look at some of those guys, and he's still probably one of the better looking of all the brothers.
Right. And was he at least semi nice? Was there during the courting phase, would you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Love bombing, was it?
Is that what it's called?
Love bombing is where they're overly nice. to start with, and
Yeah, okay,
then,
yeah, that.
So
Oh, yes, absolutely,
he was
absolutely.
great in the beginning.
Yeah. It was great in the beginning.
Okay, so
Until after I started having kids, and then okay, doesn't matter.
so you decided to marry him, and is there any more of that part that we should go over before we move on to the next, like with your kids and raising your kids?
Well, other than after I had Chanel, and you were what, 2 years old, he's the one, he took you, and I remember him beating you and saying, "This is how you need to discipline your child. And I was like, oh, okay. I was just like, I guess that's what we're supposed to do. And
Right.
And now I look back and I hate people. Sorry.
No, I think we all just did what we were told there. That was the culture. And honestly, I don't really remember that part. Most of my memories are you standing up for me during his beatings. So,
Well, that time that he started slapping Colleen because she was sick, and then he's trying to force feed her, and she threw up, and I said something to him about, you can't do that. You can't just force feed her. She's gonna gag and throw up because she doesn't have a chance to chew and swallow. And then she throws up. And then he gets all mad at me because I planted that idea into her head, and he had slapped her. And I didn't see him slap her, but I turned, she had a bloody nose. I was washing dishes. And when I started getting after him, then I drew his attention away from Colleen. And Chanel was able to get Colleen and take her in the bathroom. And I do remember Daniel getting mad at me and yelling at me. And yeah, and then he left. He left almost immediately after that.
let's go into the engagement though. Because wasn't you engaged and then another girl got engaged, right?
No, he was courting two people at the same time, because once you officially say yes to him, then, or to the man, they want you married within 2 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks. You should not have a long engagement because
once
you'll
you know,
change your mind. You'll change your mind.
well, yeah, that's probably what the real reason is. But what they tell you is, like, if you know what you're supposed to do, you need to do it. And
don't put off tomorrow what you should do, what you could do today if you know that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. Okay, so you were engaged before this other girl, right?
Yes.
And then she gets married before you.
And well, then he called me and he asked if I still wanted to get married, and I was like,
And this is Jessica's and Andrea's mom, and she was 14.
She was 15.
When she got married.
She was 14 when she was engaged, but they waited until she turned 15, and so her birthday's in July. She got married in July.
Okay.
Almost 2 weeks later. Or a week later.
I'd never want my marriage to be like the same month of my birthday. That seems kind of a ripoff. You're getting gypped there. Did you have a good relationship with her and the other wives?
I can honestly say that I did everything I could for her and to help her. And I remember when she was going through the deal with the court, when Jessica and Andrea finally left or whatever, and with the family. I remember when Daniel got copies of all the court recordings, then those kids did not talk nice about any of the families. The only people in the family they talked nice about was their Aunt Kelly and me. And one of the things is I always made sure they was fed. I treated them like my own kids.
Honestly, I remember being really close to Jessica and Andrea and Allison's mom. Like a lot of people, you may have seen Allison's interview on Cults of Consciousness. I'll leave a link in the description box down below if you haven't seen it yet. But I even was close to Allison's mom. So I kind of imagined you had a pretty decent relationship.
Well, not only that, we were all from the mine. We were all from Emory County.
Oh, you were all the families that were shunned for being lower class, or no?
Well, somewhat, yeah, I guess.
I know with Papa, this is what they
called their grandfather.
Well, yeah, they called Jessica and Andrea called them Papa, was their grandpa. But he basically, to join the order, rejoin the order, because he had left and then he come back, that he had to give up all of his children, all of his daughters, to Ortel's children for him to come back. And the only reason he did that was to save his mom, because Vicky was dying. And she had some kind of health conditions, and he wanted help for her. And to get that help, he had to sell his daughters, which is like human trafficking.
Sounds about right.
But you had a pretty semi-decent relationship with those two wives, at least.
For the most part, yes. Tried to be friendly. And if you get together, and I remember in our mom's meetings, then they would say, you know, my family works so much better together than some of the other families where the wives are always fighting back and forth. And I grew up being a peacemaker or just letting things happen because that's what I was taught. That's how I didn't really instigate a lot of crap. I didn't like a lot of crap.
What about that one time when you choked one of the wives?
Oh, when she attacked me, I did. I was holding her off. She came at me. I'm sorry. She came at me and I just was holding her off.
So what instigated that situation, if you don't mind? We don't have to go into it.
Oh, it was a work-related stupid thing, and something was wrong, and she was
put above you, and she believed in the law.
Being a half sister to her husband. So yeah, she just
had a little bit of a power trip.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just, and I said, this is wrong. And she came at me, and I dropped the papers, and I put my hands up because she was hitting me, and I put my hands up, and it happened to go around her throat. I think it's okay for somebody to defend themselves. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting was the one that you did get in kind of like a physical altercation with. You guys were actually you were pretty close friends.
She was one of the later wives. She also happens to be my cousin. We helped each other out, and she was pretty decent. And but I think there was things that I'm hearing now from multiple children of Daniel's that he bad talked me everywhere he went. He went, and once they got to know me, then I think she just thought, yeah, well, that's just him. He must be mad at somebody or somebody's. And I remember other people telling me that, because he would tell people, oh, Shirley's mad at me. And so they would say things, and I'm thinking, and he'd call me up and say, you're mad at me, right? And I says, did you want me to be mad at you?
Probably just like egging things on.
Yeah, he was absolutely a controlling manipulator.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Daniel would even tell us that he didn't want to, he would tell me and Chanel that he didn't even want to marry you. That he did it because his dad told him
Ortel told him to.
Right. And did he relay that message to you?
Well, I remember him coming to me once, and he told me that because I'm a Hanson and from the mine, then his brothers look at him as a good man for marrying me. And I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? And he said it like that. So I'm not a good man. Yeah, he did his love bombing. He did his courtship, whatever, did what his daddy told him to, what his mama wanted him to. Once I had a child, then it was okay for him to go marry somebody else.
And he could say whatever he wanted after that.
Yep. Because I was not a wife. I was a piece of property.
Oh, I want to point something else out. With LaDonna, she was very intelligent with the way she did that, because she got all of her boys to marry into each family in the order, and then she's like, okay, we have these women and their children as hostages, and we can basically manipulate all the other families in the order now. Or is that just me?
No, because I remember in one of the mom's meetings, Daniel was saying, okay, everybody has to be tied into the Kingston family, and so therefore, then that means I'm over Shirley's parents.
What did you love Daniel?
At one point, I really did, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do, and I feel like that I gave everything. I gave my all. I gave me everything until it got to the point that it was more of a.
There was nothing left?
There was nothing left to give.
Yeah. I think relationships are hard going when they don't use religion and manipulation to control you. When I was learning about going on first dates and different things, I learned that you actually want the other person to invest. Because if the other person is invested, like maybe they do something, then they care more. And so I feel like with what you just said about you did everything, you gave everything, and then you're probably questioning, why doesn't Daniel care? I've done all these things that he's asked. Because he didn't do anything. You're the only one invested in the relationship.
True.
So...
But he claims he did something because every year for Christmas for a few years, we would get a bag of oats to feed our family.
A wonderful dad. You were essentially a single mother.
Oh, absolutely. I got yelled at once because I told one of the other wives, I says, I feel like I'm living my life like a widow. I'm trying to raise these kids with no assistance, no help. The only people I have is my mom's family.
Did this wife run and tell Daniel?
Oh, yeah.
For brownie points or what?
Oh, why not?
Okay.
Our Wendell Owen posterity is so wonderful.
I want to talk about Wendell's family right this second, because you're only two girls that stayed married into Wendell's family, right?
Correct.
And I feel like they groomed these girls. Even through me, they were grooming my sisters, because one of these moms that were married to Wendell would tell me that one of my some of your girls will marry some of my sons. And like, she was grooming that into us from a very young age. And she was really nice. She was a wonderful woman for our family.
Daniel he wasn't in public. He never really put his arms around you. And, but this particular time there was a reception or a dance or something. We think it was a wedding reception. And I had gone out to the car and he seen me in my car. And he says, you need to come in here. We need to do this for the older twin. It's important. And he actually put his arm around me like this and held me next to him and walked me in. And he'd never done that to me, and I've seen other couples walk like that. But no, it was literally holding so I couldn't pull away from him. And he says, it's important that people see that we're together on this.
Oh, that's gross. When you get in there, and this is about trying to get your oldest twin to marry somebody.
Yes. Then once we got in there so that everybody could see that we walked in together, then he let go and walked off.
So it was just for show.
Absolutely.
Because the decision was already made that this girl is going to marry.
Well, she had a choice between the one she actually married,
her to marry,
and his younger brother.
Yeah, I do remember she came to me and she asked what I thought, and I'm just telling her, girl's choice is whatever you want to do. And she got manipulated because the younger brother comes to her, and he tells her, I'm probably not your number one choice, but I am an option just because you need to have choices in the order. And then his older brother comes forward, and that's like her only other option. So she got to choose out of one guy that says, I'm probably not your number one choice, and then the other guy likely comes over and says, I'm your number one choice. You're supposed to
12 years older than her, or 10 years older?
He's older than her.
He is older than her.
A lot older than her.
And I was thinking, it's almost 12 years.
And by all means, that family was great to us. They were amazing, but they manipulated us to get one of our girls.
Two of them.
Yeah, even my last boss at private school, my boss was one of this guy's siblings, and she was an amazing boss. I had a really good relationship with her. But now it's like you get in your head and you can't, were they really nice to me because they liked me, or because they were good people, or was it because they were going to get one of my sisters? Do you have anything else we want to go over as far as your relationship with the other wives, or any other stories?
Yeah, the first wife.
The first wife?
She was assigned to go over my statements, because we weren't allowed to have outside bank accounts. So
Right.
everything was paid through the
Order's banking system.
You call it the banking system, and they had like the statement system and whatever. And even to the point when you were 14 years old, she decided that you was going to start paying me rent.
I remember that, and I remember taking that really hard because I didn't even have a job.
I was only 14, and I remember it got to a point where I flat out told her, "You don't need to do this. I can do that. I'm his mother.
Actually, it was because of that situation that Daniel worked it out, because Daniel got involved after this, because we didn't listen to her, and she relayed that back to Daniel. So Daniel basically sat us both down. I remember him getting upset at me and saying, well, Jessica pays her mom $400 a month. I know you didn't feel right about it, but after that, Daniel made sure I had a job so that I could pay my part.
Yeah, I was a little bit verbal. They didn't like somebody that was verbal. But I do remember telling her. And then because she still had to review my statements every month, couldn't even get my statements until 6 weeks later, a month and a half later.
Right.
And it finally got to the point where, well, apparently I had accrued a debt to the order when I had my twins, because I was told it was cheaper to stay home and be a licensed daycare provider and 10 kids than it would be to have to pay daycare for 4 kids, 2 babies and 2 other children.
But how did you go in debt if you were doing daycare? I get to be the oldest, so I remember things. I get to watch you do this daycare, and I get to know that another wife is taking these they're claiming the kids that you're babysitting.
Oh, yes.
So that they're getting the funding from the state for kids that they're not babysitting at all, right?
That's right, because at that time, you could only have 6 children in your home.
For daycare.
For daycare. And your own children counted for that. And I remember the one person, if you want to say Jessica's family, I babysat them a lot. But I couldn't claim them on the food reimbursement program because somebody else already claimed them.
And who was this someone else? Another wife?
The one that...
I know who it was. Was it the one that died?
Yes.
Oh, that's surprising.
She was the one that was claiming them at that time.
I wonder if she actually got the funds for it, or if it just went to Daniel anyways.
Well, she's the one that says, don't tell Daniel you have money or he'll try and take it.
So she kind of knows. I had to take a little break. We'll go over some questions. Just what happened? Why'd you leave the order?
Because I agreed to be on the filming for the Escaping Polygamy show. I was trying to say, hey, not all things in polygamy are bad. He come and told me that I could no longer live there and I could no longer have a job in the group because I was an embarrassment to his family, because I allowed the health department to come into my home to show the
living conditions.
The living conditions of the home and what we were forced to put up with. And so
there was absolutely no sympathy for your living condition or anything you were going through?
Not at all. And Mom was starting to get Alzheimer's. And Mom kept saying, you're supposed to come and stay with me. She goes, I feel like you're supposed to be with me. And that was before Daniel told me to get out. Have a nice life. It's been nice knowing you.
So that's kind of where you went once you got kicked out, is to go take care of your elderly mother who's still in the order.
Yes.
I think the healing is going to take a little bit of time because there was a lot that happened, and it takes years to process some of the things and where to go and how to move forward.
Well, and then being told your whole life that all of your incomings and outgoings go in the name of the Lord, and you can only have a job if it's,
an order job.
An order job. And so doing an interview and getting an outside job was
difficult.
It is. And
was it scary? It was scary for me.
Well, and sometimes it is.
And you're just trying to survive out here alone now.
It's the difference. It's almost like being a part of the Davis County Co-op or the order again, except that I don't have to feel accountable to anybody.
Right. Because one of the comments was that you were basically a single mom. You were worse than a single mom because you would have to deal with Daniel.
Not only Daniel, but wife number 1 and 3 and 4 and
you remember
5
which ones traumatized you. I liked 5. I told you guys I would come ask some of your questions to my mom, and we're going to answer a few. And if we can't get to all of them, we'll just have to do it more later, like another interview. Jen says, seeing where she lived was so sad, and watching your mom on the show, or it was so sad watching your mom in her living conditions on the show. Was your mom able to find a place to live? Let's see.
Well, because last year Mom's house did catch fire, so then Mom's no longer living at home, so now she's living with my sister, and so therefore I had to find another place.
Leah asks, how do you feel about being free?
Okay, I don't feel the weight of being judged by others. I mean, that doesn't bother me anymore. I don't feel like I have to conform to somebody's perception of what they want me to be. I can just be me, who I am, just because I'm me.
Have you found true love?
We went over that. I'm not capable of loving anybody until I learn to love myself, and my children are my number one priority. I still have 2 girls at home.
How did the younger children do after they went to regular school?
The youngest one has never, I mean, she was only in the private school for 1 year. She's actually been doing okay, but my girls are doing good. I mean, heavens, the one that's in high school now, she's a year ahead of everybody else. She's going to be through with high school in December, so she's not even going to have to finish the year out. And the one just older than her finished high school in December a year ago. So I think they are doing much better, and they're getting their credits, and they're, and they get to go to college. And they don't have to have permission to go to college from some biological sperm donor.
Nessa asks, do you still have trouble adjusting being out of the order, even though you've been out for a while?
I believe that we all have some kind of a trauma bond still, and so maybe that's why I'm still in the mode where I am emotionally or financially and physically. There's a lot of good people out here that have been here that help me, that as far as helping me find places to live, a job, and getting me a vehicle.
But so much of that's still on your shoulders.
But yes.
Melanie Brown asks, what's your happiest moments after leaving?
I really enjoyed working at that sewing factory because I could come in. I didn't have somebody breathing down my neck telling me what to do and how to do it.
You still like sewing a lot?
I do. I wish I had a place where I could have my industrial sewing machine set up, but life happens.
What advice do you have for other women living with children?
Wherever you go, it is kind of important, in my opinion, to find out what the culture is like around there and get yourself involved, because when you get involved, there are a lot of good people out there. There's also some not so good people out there. I felt inclined to get involved with the church down here, and I was basically, by being involved, and then more opportunities open up to you, because then they know, oh, this is who you are. Okay, yeah.
That's one thing good about the church is the community.
Yes.
Mary wants to ask, what are your hobbies? I guess sewing would be one of them.
I loved sewing. I like reading. I like cooking sometimes. It's a lot different to cook for like 2 or 3 people than it is to cook for 12 people. So yeah, it's different.
Tammy asks, I couldn't imagine sleeping with someone I didn't love. These men don't even seem to like their wives. And we went over that you did love him, and you put a lot into that relationship. So of course you were invested in, of course you loved him. But was sex somewhat enjoyable, or was it the purpose solely for
procreation?
Yeah.
Well, everything's always about procreation. Sometimes it is enjoyable. Sometimes it's just like, okay, whatever.
All right. Well, we've got 40 seconds on our camera because it's likely going to die. So this might be goodbye for now. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any more questions for a future video with my mom, put them in the comments down below. By watching, you're not only supporting me, but you're supporting our guests as well. We appreciate you. And remember, you're a goddamn unicorn.
And then it says, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.